I'm Jörg Steffens from the Bareos project, and I'd like to show you some methods to interact with Bareos. I assume this talk makes most sense for people already using Bareos or Bacula. I hope you're all using it. Yeah. Okay. We will see. Okay, then I will start with a short overview about Bareos, and then I show different interaction methods. One way to interact with the system is to configure it. Yes, okay, I will handle this shortly. But the other thing I guess you are more interested in is runtime control of Bareos, and the other way around, things that get triggered by Bareos. And short roadmap afterwards. So, how does a Bareos infrastructure looks like? You have a central director located, which it keeps all the data, which controls all your backup environment and stores its information in a database. You have the storage daemon, which you have one or more multiple storage daemons, each with one or multiple storage devices attached. This is where your backup data getting stored. And you have your file daemons or your clients installed on the different machines that you want to back up. You can interact with the director during runtime through the Bareos Director Console interface, and this is used by a command line tool or web interface or some GUI tools. Okay, yeah, this is the same, just a bit newer. Clients can also be some plugins like VMware, MS SQL, NMP, and Cluster, ZFS. Configuration file. Configuration is handled in resource. So a director configuration consists of a directory resource, a catalog resource, how to connect to the database, things like this. Your clients, the file sets, so the data should get back up, your jobs, pools, scheduled storage. As an example, I put in here the job resource. Each resource got a name, in this case backup Bareos FD from type backup, level incremental, and then it references to other resources. So it references to the client's Bareos FD resource, it refers to the file sets Linux all resource, to the schedule, and so on, to this different pool, and it is enabled, so you can also disable it. Oh, I missed some lines here, but not okay. If you're not sure what you can type in here and are not willing to read the documentation, you can always ask the daemon itself. So, for example, the director, Bareos director -xs, like export schema, will show you all available directives that you can configure. If you change a configuration on the director, you can reload the director, so it's then immediately working. For storage daemon and file daemon, you have to restart the daemons. I hope this has been everything on this slide, but I guess so. Configuration can be quite large, but it's relatively straightforward, and there are modules available for Ansible, Chef, Puppet, Salt that I'm aware of. So far for the documentation. So the configuration, sorry. So runtime control of Bareos. You can connect to your director via the bconsole command. If you would like to handle this on the command line, you type in bconsole. It opens up a TCP connection to your Bareos director, authenticates. After this, gets you an interactive prompt where you can type in your commands. With help, you get a list of all available commands. But you are not limited to interactively use. You can also pipe in some commands in, and then they will be executed, and the results will be listed to standard out. So there are quite a number of scripts that just use this simple interface. There are some helper functions inside of bconsole to generate, to write back scripts. Like, for example, these are the so-called add commands. So so you can redirect the output directly to another file. You can also handle this part of this command should be outputted to this file, and if you have another output, then the rest will be outputted to another file. You can do the same with input for commands, or some other commands are available. Most commands have also the parameter yes, which says don't ask me any questions, just do it. So confirm, immediately confirm, and if you have missed some parameter, then the command will not start. Wait is also important. Wait until a job is finished, or in this case until all jobs are finished. As said, you have this uses the director console interface, and this can be accessed by bconsole, which we have seen right now. There's also a Python module, Python Bareos, to access this. The Bareos web UI, you see a screenshot of it here, also uses the same connection. This is written in PHP, so if you program something in PHP, you can reuse part of the code. And the Q3-based interface GUI, but also uses the same interface. But this is not as deprecated, because we hope everything you need is implemented in Bareos web UI. No. You can have it wherever you like, because you just use the console interface and you can connect to it. You will, in all ways, you will connect to it via TCP, so it can be on any system. Yeah, sure. Yes. Sure, but therefore I have to say mostly it's easier to SSH to the machine and then use the bconsole, but you can also use it remotely. This is, for example, done on some clients. If you want to give them specific access to trigger its own job or something like this, then you can have it bconsole locally installed, limit the access rights, and use it from the client. Okay. Also, catalog the database can also be on other systems, and Okay, I've talked about the console interface. You should be aware that there are different types of consoles. The so-called default console or root console, which give you access to all resources available in your director. This is normally the console used when you just type in bconsole. So the default configuration, this is you get the root console. The other console is the named console or restricted console, and to use this you have to define ACLs for this console. So in this case we have a console, and we gave it the name user1, provide a password, in this case secrets, and allow the user1 to execute all commands except of the delete command, and only access data from the myCatalog database, which is the default database, so it's probably all, but yeah, you can limit it. And only to the clients, client 1 and client 2, and all these words are regular expressions. So here in this case, file set, all file sets starting with the name Linux and then arbitrary string. Job IDs also. If you don't specify ACL for some resource, then you don't have access rights. So you have to specify it and provide all or some that you want to assign to this. I walk through some of the important commands of Bareos. Help is always important to get the list of all commands available. If you also want to know the parameters, you type in help and then the command name, the list of the parameters. For runtime information of the different components, you can ask status director, shows you information from the director, or you can ask status of one of your storage systems that's attached to it. Or if this is a tape library, then you can ask what volumes reside in what slots, or ask the status of different clients. You can also ask when the scheduler has planned to execute with specific jobs. If you don't specify a job name here, then you will see get a list of all jobs, or otherwise you can see one valid job or a specific job is planned to get started. The list command is to retrieve information from the catalog, from the included database. You have two versions, the normal list and the long list, which provides you more information. And you can ask about information about your backups, your clients, file sets, and so on. For example, if you are interested what jobs are stored on volume pool 1, then you just ask list the jobs that are stored on volume pool 1. Or the other way around, if you're interested where the data from your job 1 to 3 is stored, on what medias, then you ask for the job medias from this job ID. Or if you want to get the information you normally see at messages, or you can also ask for the verbose messages that have been created during the job, as the job did run. This jobs last is quite important, I think. This is if you want to get a quick overview about the status of your jobs, then you can type this command, and it will show you the last run of all your jobs. So normally, if you don't do this, then you maybe just get all jobs from the last 24 hours or something like this. But with this, you also get jobs that didn't run even for a longer period in time. What sometimes confuses people on the mailing list is, for example, if you modify or add a file set, and then you restart your director and then make list file set, then you will not see it, because this data is first synchronized to the database, and there has been a job run that uses this file set. Same with clients. This client will only show all the clients where a job did run for this client. So if you have changed your configuration and want to verify that the director is aware of this, you can use the show command, which shows the configuration. You can also ask for specific resources in here. Yes.
So the show command shows the configuration data while it is something takes data from the one.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, and then you have commands to execute jobs like backup job, restore jobs, or wait for a job to be finished. A small example to put this together is, let's say you have already installed your client's file daemon on a new system and want to configure it on the director. You can use the configure add clients, give it a name, give it an address, and give it a password. This command will complain if you have missed some required parameters, or if you have put in invalid data. Otherwise, it creates a resource file, configuration file for the new client, and immediately loads it. So you can directly start to use it and check if it's really working with status client and then client name. The same you can do with jobs. So you create your jobs, and after these three commands, you can just run the job and reserve. No, not here. Not if you use this command, then it's the director creates it automatically. Yes, okay. You can also specify all these specific parameters, but if it's a common default job, then yeah, you only have to specify it. Yes. It will create configuration files for you and immediately loads it. This is an advantage, one of the advantages. In this case, it also creates part of the configuration file that's needs on the client. So if you look the other way around, you first add it here, then it has also a director export directory, and you can copy it over to your client and yeah, restart it and then run it. No, not with this, because you have not the knowledge about this. We want to add some scripts that helps you with this, but we haven't done so. Okay. For Windows, we have the installer, and this have silent install options that you can use to configure it, also with your director, with the passwords and things like this. We also provide OPSI packages for the OPSI, the Windows management, software management system OPSI, so you can integrate it in your OPSI environment, which you hopefully have, and then install it, configure it, via this. This is all things that work well. Sometimes they don't. So you can also enable debug during runtime. You do this with set debug, specify the level. 100 is a good starting value. You specify that it should log to a log file, and adding temps. Temps is also usable, and then what components should have the debug enabled. In this case, the director. You choose the storage to what this is. You can't specify to what file the log file will be generated. However, if you issue this command, it will write you the file where it logs to. This is not a big deal on Linux because it's always in this directory, but on Windows you are glad because, yeah, depending on the Windows version, it uses different log files. And this has been now all about the normal commands. You have also the special dot commands, and they have been intended for non-interactive use, but if you're creating scripts, then you might want to use them. You will not see them with the help command, but if you use the dot help command, you will also see these dot commands. For example, .sql, normally you should be able to get all the information you require by the list command, but if this is not the case, you can also specify arbitrary SQL commands to execute. Of course, you could also directly connect to the database, but here you have already the authentication to the database and don't have to care what type of database you are using. Okay. So now it's getting interesting. The normal output from the B console is in RP mode 0, meaning RP mode disabled. So it's intended to be human readable, and yeah, it's quite okay. I guess for that, some time ago, RP mode 1 has been introduced. Yeah, and there's a reason why we haven't used this anymore. But we introduced AP mode JSON, or AP mode 2, which outputs data in JSON format to be better usable by other programs. So, as an example, maybe I start on top. In AP mode 0, a list drop 1, you're getting this table nicely formatted and gets the information in there. With AP mode 1, yeah, the decoration is stripped, the first bar is stripped, and not sure what else have changed, but unfortunately this is not really consistent between the different commands. With API mode JSON and the same command, you're getting a dictionary named results, and inside, because we ask for jobs, you're getting an array of jobs with the information and how the fields are called. We already tried to mimic JSON RPC 2.0 format because we have to use some format, and maybe then it gets easier to extend it someday to a real JSON RPC server. Yeah, how to use this? For this you could use Python Bareos. Python Bareos, yeah, is something like the B console, so it first connects to the director. But there's also a submodule for JSON, so you can handle the JSON data immediately. You can also directly connect to the storage daemon or file daemon, but they don't have, yeah, they only provide limited commands that you can use. So, as the same example as before, you first have to prepare your password. You import the Bareos BSOP class. Prepare your password, then use the director console JSON class, connect to this address with this users and this password, and then you call the command that we issued before, and you immediately get returned a Python structure with the data included. also not the result text, just the real result. If there is an error, then you get an exception. So this is quite usable to create your own scripts. If you're doing backups, you probably care about the files, and I will now show some methods to access data from files. So even before you really did run a backup job, you can call estimate listing and get in return. So then the director will connect to the client, and this will return all the files that would get back up if this job would run. If you have really run this job, then you can, with list files of this job ID, you get the list of the files and directory that are backed up by this job, but without extra information, without the stat information and so on. If you use the restore command, say the last backup from this system, then it will generate a virtual file tree and giving you a new prompt, and then you can use dir or ls or cd command to walk through your backup data. If the file or directory is not really included in the backup, but only this because it's the parent directory, then the values here are all 0, like in this case. But here you also got the real backup data from your files. You can mark the files, say done, and then these will be restored. This is fine, but if you really want to write a script to interact with your file data, then this is not enough. For this, you have to use the BVSS API. This is described in the developer guide, and it looks quite nice, as you see. You first have to update the cache for the job ID you care for, and then ask where does this backup start. So BVSS ls directories from this job ID with an empty path. You get the root directory in return. This root directory has path ID 3, and other values are set to 0. And AAA means this is all also 0, because what you see here is the serialized form of the stat field normally. This is done in this way and stored in this way to be more flexible about the database, about different clients, but it's not really handleable. But okay, you know that your / directory is at path ID 3. You get the directories of path ID 3. Then you see, oh, there's a user directory still with no information, but it's got the path ID 2. And then you look for the directories in path ID 2. Then you at least see, oh, this is really something, because here are some information. And the user sbin directory is in path ID 1. And there are no further subdirectories, but you can list the files that are in this directory. So you need BVSS if you want to ask the Bareos director for specific directories. Yeah, I say that's not really easy, but this is the way that, and also the web UI restore browser did work and used these commands, because they can't work with the list of all files, because there can be quite many. Oh yeah, in JSON format you can at least read the data. Yeah, if you want to, but doesn't help too much. Another way to access this is using Bareos views, so a views file system based on Python Bareos JSON mode. And if you mount this, this will connect to your director, and in this directory, you mount it to Bareos FS, for example. You get directories for clients, for jobs, for pools, for volumes, and then you can list, for example, the jobs running directory, and you will see, okay, currently there's one job running, has this job ID, has the name Gonzo, client Gonzo FD, level is full, and status is running, because otherwise it wouldn't be in this directory. You can not only ask for running jobs, but you can also ask for all the jobs for client Ting FD, and then you will see, scroll it to here, you have on the 20th January, you have a job with this job ID for the name Ting, client Ting FD, level full, status terminated successfully, so this is good. And the day before you have a similar job, which is incremental. I guess they both started at the same time, but you see the full job did end quite later, 2 hours later, and so on. And here on the 17th January, you get a job that did fail. You not only see the job, you can also go to the directory and then get access to job log, for example, or the info, which is the information you would get from list job ID of this job and the data subdirectory. You can descend to the data directory and then you will see all your metadata or all the files that you have backup in your backup job. Of course, you can't access them there because you haven't done a restore. You just look at the metadata that is stored at the directory in the database. But you get the information, you get the metadata, the file, change date, and so on. And you can use your normal Unix tools like find, for example, to find all the files that are larger than 100 megabytes.
Will incremental directory show only the actual file that were backed up during the incremental, or show the full data set for which they are referring?
Incremental will only show only this specific job.
Okay.
You can handle this otherwise. This is just really shallow Python code with list jobs and list files and so on. If you want to have in other features, just it will be few lines of code, 3 or 4, something like this. You not only can see the jobs of specific clients, you can also get a list of your pools and your volumes in your pools. Then you can immediately see we have this always incremental full volume that is in status full. So we have written this amount of bytes to this volume, and it's in read-only mode because because it's full. And here on this other volume, you see it's in append mode, so you can still write data to it, and therefore it's in read-write. The last time data is written to it has been the 20th January. Again, you can change to the directory of a volume, you get some extra information, and also jobs, so you can descend to a volume, to a specific volume, and then the jobs, and you will see all the jobs that are backed up on this volume. And in this job, you can change to the directories in there and get the files that are backed up with this job. So quite useful, and you can write your normal Unix tools to script to retrieve some information. It's not the most efficient way to get the data, but yeah, it's quite comfortable. Okay, now we want to care about specific problems and writing script for this. For example, you have your Bareos backup environment and you back up all your servers and everything works fine. But your servers are always there, so you can have a fixed scheduling for them and back up the data. But now think you have your coworkers with their laptops, and they are sometimes in the office, sometimes not. And maybe you have dynamic IPs, and so it's complicated to get a time when you can back up them. So how to solve this with this short script, I can say. And it works like it gets a list of all. No, I have to start otherwise. We use the client initiate connection. So in this case, not the director connects to the client, but the client is configured to connect to the director. And the director is then aware of all the clients that did the connection to it and have the connection. And if there's a job for the client, it will reuse this connection. And yeah. Hey. So you get the information with status director and look at the field connected client or client connection, and you only care about the name of the clients. Then you loop through all the connected clients. Yeah, you have the trigger function. You can call them by a cron, for example, every hour or every minute, as you like. You get all the connected clients. You loop through the client. You guess a job name associated with the client. So if your client is called client 1, you look for a job backup of client 1. And if this job exists, you check is there a job for this client in the last 24 hours. So if there's no job for this client, then you just execute run, the job name that you have there, yes, to confirm it, and in result you get a job ID from the newly triggered job, and yeah, can just print it out. So with this short script you can solve the problem with your mobile clients that are sometimes at the office, sometimes not, just by running this periodically, checking the clients that are connected, and yeah, and starting a job if no job exists for the last 24 hours. So I have how much time left? For 50 minutes? Oh, 20 minutes. Okay, then I go. No, I don't go through this because it's not all on the slide. If you have a question about tuning volumes and how to automate this in specific case, ask me after this talk. Oh, that's a question?
I have a question regarding the client. When
Yes.
you initiate the connection to the client, how do you deal with the connection to the storage daemon? Because when the clients are on the road, they are not usually getting the storage.
No, this is for the time that the clients are back in your office, connect to the director, which is also located in the office, and then you know that your clients are there, and then you trigger the backup. Okay, now the other way around, things getting triggered by Bareos. For this you got run scripts, you got quite flexible run scripts. Either you can call with a job a command on the console itself, so use the Bareos, direct Bareos command. You have options like they should only run if the job has succeeded, or only if the job has failed, and you can specify when they should run before a job, after the job. I guess one of the set and one on failure only works with after the job, or on Windows after VSS, something like this. You can also execute arbitrary system commands with the command run script, and then you have the additional options there if this command should be executed on the director or on the client where the backup runs, and if the job should fail if the system command fails. Some examples, for example, if you want to create a virtual full backup from your existing backups and store it somewhere else to an archive pool, but don't want that this newly generated virtual full is again used as a base for the next virtual full. Then what you can do is create your virtual full, store it in the archive pool, but after you have done so, update the job ID, because you know the current job ID by this variable, and change the type from backup to archive. Archive jobs are similar to backup jobs, but they are not used internally for any other actions. So you can just run this. This is a console command. You can also type it in the B console, but you can integrate it with your job, and it should run on the server, and it should not run if this job before has failed.
Is it the same as a copy, an archive, or
No, not the same.
the archive job and a copy job are not the same?
No. What other jobs are available are admin jobs. Normally you get backup jobs or restore jobs, and with admin job you don't do any actual backup. You just use this to run some commands, and in this case, after the after the backup of your own system, you optimize the database, which can be an advantage if you're using Postgres. So don't do backups, but just use this as a kind of cron, but triggered by other things in here. Relax and recover. Yeah, maybe some of you have heard, are using this or have heard talks before. Relax and recover is a disaster recovery environment for Linux, which works quite well. It works in 2 steps. Once it creates a rescue image from your currently running system, it creates a rescue image, and you can boot with this rescue image and restore the system. Second step, TRIA itself could do backup, but it can also integrate other backup solutions, and thankfully Bareos is also part of this. And a minimized way and quite comfortable way to integrate it with Bareos is, normally you got the question, okay, when my system broke, I need my rescue system. So it should, I should be able to have a recent rescue system. So when to create it and where to store it, because you normally don't want to store it on your local system. We have options to store it on NFS and things like this, but via a backup solution. So this approach just creates this regularly on every full backup and stores them locally on our own file system, because our full file system is back up to the backup server, and if you really require it, we can extract it from our normal backup and then restore it to another machine where a CD burner or an USB drive is attached. We can put it on there, and then we have the rescue image. We can place it in the same server with the replaced hard disk and restore our system. We do so with a run before script. So before we actually do the backup, we run on the client disk command. This is a shell script. This has one parameter. This is the backup level, so full, differential, or incremental. We only execute this on full because, if you would do this in incremental, then every incremental have an additional size of 50 or 60 megabytes, which you don't want. But on your full backup, with whatever few gigabytes you use, 50 megabytes more or less are not really important. And it's important to create this rescue image regularly, because it integrates your current kernel, your current network configuration, your current hard disk layout. So if you don't do this regularly, you might run into problems, because if your rescue system is 1 year old, so you can only get back to the status from the 1 year old system. So again, something is missing on the slides. What I would show you if the scheme has been larger. You then have the B console. You make to type in restore of let me think. Control minus is also an option. Hey, thanks. Okay, that's what you have to type. Restore from the current backup of clients you care about, client FT1. Extracts the file varlib rear output rear bareos.iso. This is the default location by rear. And restore it to some other system which has a CD burner attached. And we use this special restore job. Just we don't make the restore in the varlib rear output location, but in the temp directory or some other directory you want to use. So with this, you have your normal backup job, and and your rear directly integrated with this.
Though RIA requires you to add the NFS, right?
No, it doesn't require it. It offers you to store the data on NFS, but it also offers different methods, like maybe also copying Samba for sure, and a lot of other possibilities. Async, so.
That will just boot up the ISO, and then when you have the recovery system up, then you restore the file from Bareos.
Yes, so the rear Bareos integration is that rear, you can configure your rear that should use Bareos, and then rear itself, in the rescue image, uses the kernel, your network setup, your disk layout, but also copies all the Bareos tools you have installed on the system on your rescue system, so it boots up and has the same file daemon available that you have on your running system. And with this, it restores just your data from your normal backup.
And that will automatically be already into the recovery ISO that you
Yes.
create? Oh,
You just have this one line, backup Bareos, something like this, and this is all.
that will be in the boot command line.
No, this is in the configuration via local.conf, but
Okay.
it's just one line in the configuration, so it's really easy to handle and really powerful. Yes, for sure. Okay, then this is about scripts. Now we say 2 slides about plugins. Bareos can be extended by plugins with the director, storage daemon, or file daemon. With this, you register to specific events you care about. On the file daemon plugins, normally you use them to back up specific data, like a database, virtual machines, or something like this. Plugins on the storage daemon are normally made for rewrite data, like on-the-fly compressed data that's coming in. Normally this is done on the client, but if your client is not that powerful, but your storage server is, then you can also make the compression there, or SCSI crypto to use crypto tapes like this to retrieve some status information. Or for the director, this is normally, if you write a plugin there, then you do this for status information. And the shortest possible plugin is something like this. You have to import the Bareos class for the director, and then you have to override the init function. Then you register for the events you care about. In this case, we only care for the event the job did end. Then you have to override the handle plugin event function. When this is called, it's called with a specific event. We check for this event. Okay, in this case it should always be event job end because we only registered for this, but we check nevertheless. Then we retrieve some other information like what client the job did run, have there been errors, how many bytes, how many files, how many bytes have been transferred. We format that in some other way, and then we send it to Isinger or Graphite or whatever you use for monitoring or for visualizing your backup system or your environment. Okay, so I'm mostly done. Just roadmap for the upcoming release for the things that's important for integration is the Python Bareos is currently available at the Bareos concept repository, but will be moved to Bareos core repository in the next major release. The Bareos web UI is actively developed by Frank over there, and it will continue to be enhanced, and therefore we also will extend the director for to provide more information. Yeah, this part about media handling and optimizing this for disk storage I skipped, so I don't have, it's not so important. What I missed here at the roadmap, it's we have seen here the console connection where you specify a user and a password. We have received a pull request for adding PEM support, which has quite some implication, but we want to put work on this and get this integrated for, we plan to integrate this also for 17.2, so you can directly authenticating your LDAP directly or whatever you like. Okay, now we got time for questions. No questions, I'm done. Good. Oh, okay, one question.
About Python 3 integration, we will have a Python 3 -fb.so.
So for the Python Bareos module, so which opens a TCP connection to the director, this also works with Python 3 and is already in use with Python 3. For the plugin, yes, as I heard before, it's only Python 2 right now, but it's already prepared for Python 3 and will also be done soon, I guess. Yeah, I guess per distribution, because normally we compile it against what's available on the distribution, and if the distribution only offers Python 3, we will do it for Python 3. Yeah. 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 Okay. Other question? Yes?
I have a quick question about the Python module. Can you just like fetch the status, or can you like start running jobs or other things?
In principle, it's it connects to the director, and then you can call the call function and put in all the commands. It could also enter the B console, and so this will be executed, and the result will be given to you. Okay.
How to implement
Yeah.
how to implement a second backup server for like a failover in the scenery, the big backups server.
Yes,
When it fails, and you want another one, like a failover or something.
failover. If you want to have a failover, the only thing you need, you have a redundant database that you do with your database tools, and then you can have a second director. For this is only important the configuration director, etc. Bareos director, and you can copy them over or keep them synchronized, and then you can start the other director. And
You never tried that.
oh, we tried it in one project, or we did this in one project. Yeah. Okay, but now
Okay. So you need two directors also, or you could have two.
not simultaneously, so it's just a failover.
You have the service IP and the cluster software pacemaker or something like that must take care to switch over the IP to the other server and start the services and all that stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
So, first question is, what do you think about exposing, so since the clients need to reach both the director and the file daemon, like the file
Storage daemon.
the file storage daemon, it is possible that you need to expose those to the internet, you know, they need to be exposed because maybe you don't have everything in your LAN.
Mhm.
If you're doing remote backups, you know.
Mhm.
So is that a security concern for you? Or
Of course, it's a security concern if you provide services to the internet. But yes, we are aware that people are doing so. You, of course, should have your TLS encryption configured to do so. And probably also, what would be a good choice is also to encrypt the data on the client. This is also a Bareos option. So the transport is encrypted, and also through the encrypted transport, your data is also have been encrypted before. So this should be quite
so
reasonable.
both the communication is encrypted
Yes.
and the data.
The data is
passes over
ge-
the internet.
Exactly.
Is it-
The data is encrypted on the client and can only be restored on the client, or if you got the master key, also configured somewhere else.
Okay.
So
And the second question is,
yeah,
the second question is the very bare minimum requirements on the client, you know, to keep it lightweight, is having the file daemon storage.
the file daemon, only the
Just
file
like,
daemon.
You know, if you want to keep it as small as possible, that's the only requirement
Yes.
that you have on the client. How resource hungry is that file daemon storage on the client? Like, is it very, like, do you need a powerful machine? Like, do you need, because I think that the director needs to be 4 gigabyte, I think was the best practices.
I'm not sure about this. I know that some people running the director and also the storage daemon on a Raspberry Pi, so
Oh.
I'm sure that's not so. Of course, it's not the fastest solution, but a lot of people using this way. And also, the core components are all written in C, C++. Also, they are running on AX, APOX from 10 to 15 years old, so it's not so resource intensive.
Even with big storage data sets, like it doesn't get very, very heavy if the data set is growing.
So if you have to detect the files that have changed since the last backup, then this can consume some time. And also encrypting the data on the client will also consume time, but this is normal. So if you have the if you cannot afford this from your CPU time, you can configure it to make this lightweight and maybe unencrypted, but yeah, maybe you don't want to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. This is it? Okay. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Are there plans to speed, for example, safety better address up they are having their own ND5 table about checked files? And when I run a Bareos backup about a huge shredder, that file takes a long time to check it. Are there plans to make improvements regarding Python?
There are plans. So the question has been to use some file system mechanism to detect changed files more quickly. And this is for ZFS or BetaFS, yes. And we discussed this, and we have also a task defined for it. But currently nobody is working on this. But yeah, it could be hopefully done quite easily. But I've checked this with BetaFS, and this wasn't this easy, because if you want to retrieve the file information that has changed, you have these virtual mount points, and then you yeah, it wasn't that easy. It's easier to get changed blocks, but we're not backing up blocks, we're backing up files. So also this is not too efficient. But yeah, with a file daemon plugin, this can be implemented quite easily. Okay. Okay.